My stepfather refused to pay for my college, but funded his son's luxury apartment. He told me, "You're not my real daughter. Why would I invest in you?" I took out loans, graduated top of my class, and got hired at a firm that eventually bought out his company. He was let go in restructuring. At the exit interview, he walked in and froze. I looked up from my file and said, "Now you're going to learn what it means to." I'm not sure what's harder to swallow. Being told you're not good enough, or being told you're not real enough. When I was 16, my mom married a man named Charles. We lived in Waco, Texas. Small place, nothing fancy, but we got by. My mom worked 2 jobs. She was kind, tired all the time, but always there when it mattered. Then came Charles. He was polished. Always in a suit, even on weekends. He said things like networking and asset portfolio like they were normal dinner topics. He ran some logistics company and always talked about building legacy. My mom loved how secure he seemed. Me? I didn't trust him. Something about the way he looked at me, like I was a scratch on a new car. He had a son, Ryan. He was a year younger than me, but he acted like a trust fund brat out of some bad TV show. The kind of guy who thought saying, "Do you know who my dad is?" was a power move. We went to the same school, and while I worked shifts at the library and tutored to pay for my AP test fees, he cruised around in a brand new Jeep Cherokee. My mom tried to bridge the gap, but Charles made it clear, I wasn't his problem. I wasn't his daughter. He never said it straight to my face until one night. I was about to start applying to colleges. My grades were good, SAT scores high, teachers liked me. My mom brought it up to Charles, just asked if he could help with the tuition. I was upstairs when I heard him say, "She's not my real daughter. Why would I invest in her?" That was the first time I cried in months. Not because I was surprised, but because hearing it out loud made it permanent. He didn't pay a dime for my college. Not books, not a laptop, nothing. I took out every loan I could. Pell Grants, part-time jobs, scholarships I had to reapply for every semester. I survived. Meanwhile, Ryan got kicked out of Texas Tech in his first year for partying and skipping class. Charles? He didn't scold him. He congratulated him on realizing traditional school wasn't for everyone. Then he rented Ryan a high-rise apartment in Dallas and gave him a salaried job at one of his companies. Ryan called it adulting. I called it betrayal. I kept pushing through. Graduated top of my class at UT Austin with a finance degree. Got hired at Bentley Capital in Houston. Started low, worked harder than anyone. While my coworkers went home at 6, I stayed until 10. I picked up extra projects, learned everything from asset management to acquisitions. I didn't complain, I didn't slow down. I couldn't afford to. Years passed. I moved up the ladder. By 30, I was a senior associate. At 33, I became director. That's when I heard about the acquisition. Bentley was buying out CKS Enterprises. My stomach flipped when I saw the name. That was Charles's company. The one he used to brag about over dinner. The one he said I'd never be a part of. Turns out, he wasn't doing as well as he used to. Poor management, bad investments, and overpaying underqualified family members, guess who, had caught up with him. Our firm was coming into clean house. I didn't tell anyone my connection. I kept it professional. But when the list of terminations came in, and I saw his name on it, I didn't feel shock. I felt clarity. His title? VP of Operations. His severance? Minimal. His legacy? Useless. I volunteered to do the final exit interviews in Dallas. HR didn't ask questions. When Charles walked in, he froze. It had been nearly 15 years since we'd last spoken. He looked tired, his expensive suit a little looser, his hair thinner. He opened his mouth. Maybe he was going to pretend like nothing happened. Or maybe he wanted to say my name like it still meant something to him. I didn't let him. I opened the folder and said, "Clear as day, now you're going to learn what it means to be considered not worth the investment." He didn't sit down at first. Just stood there, hand still on the doorknob like he might run. I didn't move. I let the silence stretch. He finally stepped inside, slow, like he thought maybe this was some mistake. He looked older. Smaller, even. Or maybe I just wasn't that scared kid anymore. "You work here?" he finally asked. I didn't answer. I tapped the folder. "Have a seat. We have a lot to go over." He sat across from me, his eyes scanning the room like maybe someone else would come in and fix this for him. No one did. I started the formal part. "Charles Whitmore, Vice President of Operations. You've been with CKS for 14 years. As part of the acquisition, your role has been reviewed and deemed redundant." He raised his hand, like I was a teacher and he wanted to speak. I ignored it. "You'll receive a basic severance package," I continued, keeping my voice flat. "However, due to your non-compete clause and the terms of your contract, you're ineligible for any executive bonuses or deferred compensation. Legal has already signed off." Now he looked like he'd been slapped. "You can't do this. I built that company. I helped grow it." I met his eyes. "You helped run it into the ground. That's what the numbers show." He started to say something, but I cut him off. "You hired your son straight out of college. No qualifications. You paid him more than half your department leads. He blew company money on travel and bar tabs, which, by the way, we flagged and reported to finance." His face turned red. "That's not," Ryan was, he was going through a rough patch. "And you covered it up. With shareholder funds." He stared at me. Then, slowly, it hit him. You did this. You targeted me." I leaned back, crossed my arms. "No. I did my job." The numbers spoke for themselves. "But you're enjoying this," he said, voice low. I didn't deny it. He stood up. "Your mother would be ashamed." That stopped me. For a second. Then I picked up the next folder and calmly said, "We're done here. Security will escort you out." But that wasn't the end. Not even close. 2 weeks later, I got an email from HR. Someone was contesting their severance. Claimed they were unfairly targeted. Guess who? Charles had lawyered up. And not just that. Ryan had posted a rant online. Full of lies. Called me a bitter step-sibling with a vendetta. Said I used dirty tactics to sabotage a family-run company. It started gaining traction. A few mutual contacts from Waco even messaged me, asking if it was true. I tried to keep it clean. Professional. But they were dragging it into the mud. So I started digging. And what I found was way worse than I expected. At first, I just wanted to clear my name. I wasn't looking to destroy him further. Not yet. But once Ryan's rant spread, and people from my past started questioning me, I knew I couldn't just let it go. So I opened a few archived audits from CKS. I had access, since Brentley now owned everything. I pulled vendor contracts, expense reports, and travel reimbursements tied to both Charles and Ryan. I expected a few shady entries. Maybe some inflated expenses. What I found? Full-on fraud. There were double invoices from vendors that didn't exist. A trucking company listed in Amarillo that had no trucks, no drivers, and no physical address, but had received over $300,000 in logistical coordination fees. All approved by Charles. Ryan was listed as a project consultant on contracts that had no deliverables. Just flat payouts. One of them was tied to an LLC he created 6 months after flunking out of college. They were funneling company money into fake projects, and Charles had signed off on nearly all of it. I documented everything. Brought it to our legal team. They were stunned. The internal fraud investigation was launched that week. But then things got worse. I started getting anonymous calls at night. Blocked numbers. Heavy breathing. Silence. Then one night, a voice. "You think you're better than us? We made you." I hung up, filed a report. Next day, someone slashed my tires in the Brently parking garage. Security pulled footage, a blurry figure in a hoodie. Never caught. Ryan had gone off the rails. I heard from an old classmate that he'd been bragging to people back in Waco that he'd take care of the person who ruined his life. He never used my name, but we both knew who he meant. I filed for a temporary restraining order. But none of it stopped me. When legal finished the investigation, they moved fast. Brently filed formal fraud charges with the authorities. The case went to the Texas State Attorney General's office. Charles and Ryan were both under investigation. Brently's board wanted to make an example out of them, to show we clean house properly. Then I got a call I didn't expect. It was my mom. She was crying. My mom hadn't called me in years. After Charles came into her life, our relationship changed. Not overnight, but slowly. He filled her head with talk about loyalty, about family unity. I think she believed keeping the peace meant staying quiet, even when he treated me like I was invisible. But now she was sobbing into the phone. I didn't know, she said. I didn't know it was this bad. She told me Charles had been lying to her for years. About the business. About Ryan. About everything. Their money was gone, drained into failed ventures, legal bills, and hush settlements from past employees. They'd mortgaged their house twice. She said the last savings account had been emptied last week. And then she found out about the criminal charges. I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I asked her one question. When he told you I wasn't his real daughter, and you let him leave me out in the cold, was it worth it? She cried harder. I didn't hang up. I listened. But I didn't offer help. That chapter had closed. Weeks later, the full investigation wrapped. The state pressed charges for corporate fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement. Charles was arrested. They even filmed it, a local news crew had gotten tipped off. There he was, in handcuffs, being walked out of his now empty office. That smug look wiped off his face. Ryan tried to run. Literally. They found him in a motel in Lubbock, hiding under his middle name. They charged him with conspiracy and wire fraud. He was 29, with no degree, no real experience, and no clue how deep the hole was. The court hearings were brutal. I didn't attend all of them, but I sat through the sentencing. Charles got 12 years. Ryan got 6. The judge said something that stuck with me: greed and nepotism are not just poor business practices. They are choices that erode trust and destroy lives. I walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Brently Capital released a public statement clearing my name and praising my integrity and diligence. They offered me a promotion to Executive Vice President of Strategic Affairs. I took it. Then came the final piece. The home Charles and my mother once lived in, the one where he told me I wasn't worth investing in, went into foreclosure. It hit the open market at a fraction of its value. I bought it. Cash. I didn't move in. I didn't renovate it. I didn't even touch the furniture. I donated the entire house, furniture, dishes, everything, to a local domestic violence recovery nonprofit that helps single mothers with daughters who need a safe place to live. The press picked up the story. It went viral for a week. I never gave interviews. Never mentioned names. But people figured it out. I heard from a few of my old classmates. One of them messaged me, "I remember when Ryan used to laugh at you for working the lunch shift in the library. Who's laughing now?" But I didn't laugh. I just moved on. I didn't destroy Charles. He destroyed himself. All I did was survive, remember, and wait. And when the time came, I made sure he understood, being a real daughter had nothing to do with blood. It had everything to do with what you build when no one believes in you. And what you're willing to do when they finally pay the price.